My family laughed behind my back about my embarrassing career. Then I cut them off financially. Days later, they drained my bank account, but what I did next left they speechless. I'm Alex, I'm 27, and for the past few years I've been working as a full-time streamer. It's not something I really talk about with my family much, mostly because they don't understand it, and honestly, I prefer it that way. But here's the thing. I make good money, more than enough to live comfortably, invest, and, up until recently, support my family financially. My parents were never rich, and growing up things were always a little tight. My dad, let's call him Greg, worked an average office job and always complained about how real jobs don't pay enough. My mom stayed home and my sister Emily, well, she's a few years younger than me and still figuring life out. I don't blame her for that, but what I do blame her for is what happened a few nights ago. See, ever since I started making real money, my dad's attitude toward me has been weird. He's never directly acknowledged my success, never asked how I make a living, and certainly never treated me like an adult who's capable of taking care of himself and them. Instead, he treats me like some loser who refuses to get a real job. It used to just be eye-roll comments like, "Oh, playing video games all day must be so exhausting," or "When are you going to do something productive with your life?" But recently, it's gotten worse. Last weekend, I went over to my parents' house for a family game night. We don't do them often, but every once in a while my mom insists on quality time, so I go along with it. I figured it'd be a few rounds of Uno, some lighthearted bickering, and maybe a home-cooked meal if I was lucky. Instead, it turned into a night of subtle and not-so-subtle jabs at me. It started small, my dad making fun of how I just work late. Then my sister chimed in about how I never really grew up. Eventually, my mom started reminiscing about how I used to have such big dreams when I was younger, as if I were some tragic disappointment. I tried to brush it off. I'd been dealing with this for years, and honestly, I'd been over it. But what I didn't know was that Emily had been recording parts of the night on her phone. 2 days later, she posted the video. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just scrolling through Instagram when I saw a notification that she had posted a story. I tapped on it without thinking, and there it was. A shaky, low-quality video of my dad, sitting back in his chair, drink in hand, saying, "I swear Alex has the easiest life on earth. Plays his little games, talks to nerds all day, and somehow pays rent. He could be homeless in a year and not even see it coming." Then laughter. My sisters, my mom's, even my uncle was in the background chuckling. I swiped through the next few clips, and it was more of the same. My dad going on about how Alex thinks he's some kind of businessman, while my mom made a joke about how I should put that computer science degree to use and get a real job. And my sister? She was filming it like it was some hilarious behind-the-scenes moment. At one point, she turned the camera on herself and whispered between giggles, "This is why he never brings a girlfriend home." Like I said, I knew they didn't take my job seriously. I knew they thought I was just wasting my life away in front of a screen. But something about seeing them say it when they thought I wasn't listening, hearing the laughter, the mockery, the sheer lack of respect, hit me in a way I didn't expect. For years I'd been helping them. I'd covered bills when they were struggling. I'd paid off my mom's medical expenses when she needed surgery last year. I even gave Emily money when she was short on rent for her apartment. And yet, here they were, laughing at me like I was some pathetic loser they had to tolerate. I closed Instagram, sat there for a second just staring at my phone, and then, for the first time in years, I felt something shift inside me. Because if that's how they really saw me, maybe it was time to stop helping them. At first, my brain tried to make excuses for them. Maybe they were just joking. Maybe this was one of those moments where people say stupid things for the sake of family banter. Maybe I was overreacting, but the longer I thought about it, the more I realized, no, this wasn't just one offhand joke. This wasn't some harmless teasing between family members. This was contempt. A group of people I'd been supporting in ways they probably didn't even realize, sitting around and laughing about how pathetic they thought I was. And the worst part? They meant it. You can tell when someone is joking. There's a certain energy to it, something lighthearted, something affectionate. But that video? That wasn't lighthearted. That was my dad sitting there confidently tearing me down like it was the most natural thing in the world. That was my sister recording it because she thought it was entertaining. That was my mom chiming in, not to defend me, not to say, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't be trashing Alex like this," but to add to it. I felt something tighten in my chest, a dull, simmering heat that wasn't quite rage yet, but close. I wanted to text Emily right then and there, ask her what the hell she was thinking, demand an explanation, but I stopped myself. Instead, I opened my banking app. I scrolled through my recent transactions, just letting the numbers sink in. $1,500 for rent money for my parents' house, $600 for the last chunk of Emily's car payment, $3,200 for a credit card bill my dad had forgotten to pay, $250 for groceries from when my mom called saying they were short last month, Line after line, a quiet, damning list of all the ways I'd been helping them. All the times they'd come to me with a small favor or an unexpected expense that they just couldn't handle on their own. For years, I'd said yes every single time because I wanted to help, because they were my family, because no matter how dismissive my dad was, no matter how little respect they showed me, I convinced myself that I was doing the right thing, that someday they'd see I wasn't some lazy failure. But now, staring at that video, at those transactions, it hit me. They weren't ever going to see me differently. Not unless I made them. I took a breath, then another, and then, finally, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I opened my group chat with my parents and my sister, and I typed, "Hey, just saw Emily's video, didn't realize you all thought so little of me." 3 little dots appeared almost instantly. My mom typing, then they vanished. Then my sister started, then stopped. Finally, my dad replied, "Oh, you saw that, come on, don't be so sensitive, we were just joking around." I stared at the screen. Joking, right? Before I could respond, Emily chimed in, "Yeah, it wasn't serious, lol. You know how Dad gets after a few drinks." That heat in my chest burned a little hotter. "Funny, I don't remember it being a joke when you needed money for rent last month," I typed. Another pause, longer this time. Then, "Dude, seriously? You're mad over a stupid video?" I clenched my jaw. This wasn't just about the video, it was about the years of disrespect, the years of being treated like some kind of joke even while I was the one making sure they could pay rent, keep the lights on, buy groceries, and they still didn't get it. So, I typed one last message. "I'll make this simple. If you think my job is so embarrassing, you won't have to worry about it anymore. Don't ask me for another cent." Then, before they could respond, I muted the chat, and for the first time in years, I felt something like relief. Of course, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot, because if I knew anything about my dad, it was that he never handled losing control well, and I'd just taken away his favorite safety net. I had a feeling the real fallout was about to begin. The first few hours after I muted the chat were eerily quiet. No messages, no frantic apologies, no desperate attempts to argue. For a brief, stupid moment, I almost thought maybe they got the message, maybe they finally understood. Then, around 9 p.m., my phone lit up. Dad calling. I let it ring. A minute later, a text. "Pick up the damn phone." Then another and another. "You really think you're going to cut us off over this? Grow up, Alex." There it was, that familiar tone, that mix of anger and entitlement, like he was owed a conversation, like I was the one being unreasonable for finally setting a boundary. I ignored him. 2 minutes later, Emily texted, "Dude, you're being so dramatic. Dad's pissed. Just talk to him. It wasn't even that serious." I didn't respond. Then my mom, "Alex, honey, please don't do this. You know your father didn't mean any harm." That one stung more than it should have. Not because I believed her, but because of how automatic it was, how predictable. She always did this. Minimized his behavior, swept things under the rug, smoothed things over just enough to keep the peace. I could practically hear her voice in my head, that tired, exasperated sigh she always used whenever I dared to push back. "You know how he is, Alex. Just let it go." But So I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, shut my laptop, and went live. It was a good stream too, pulled solid numbers, had a great game, even got a couple of big donations from some regulars. And the whole time, I kept thinking, this is my real life, not them, this. I should have felt free, and in a way I did, but I also knew my dad, and I knew he wouldn't just let this go. I crashed around 3 a.m., completely exhausted, and when I woke up the next morning, the first thing I saw was my phone screen absolutely flooded with notifications. 16 missed calls, 8 from Dad, 4 from Mom, 2 from Emily, 2 from an unknown number. And then, at the very top, the one notification that made my stomach drop. My bank app. I tapped it open, already dreading what I'd see. $600 withdrawn, $150 withdrawn. I stared at the screen, my brain taking a second to process what I was looking at before the realization hit me like a freight train. They took money from me. More specifically, my parents had just drained my joint emergency savings account, the account I had set up years ago, the one I'd created back when they were struggling, when I still thought I could trust them, when I was naive enough to believe that helping them would make them appreciate me. I barely used it now. It was just a backup, a safety net, and they were emptying it. My hands were shaking as I yanked my phone off the charger and immediately called my bank. "Yeah, I need to remove someone from my account," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady as the customer service rep greeted me. They started asking for security details, confirming my identity, all that standard stuff. But I could barely focus. My mind was racing, a mix of anger and disbelief crashing over me in waves. They really thought they could do this. They really thought they could steal from me, and I'd just take it. While the rep worked, I pulled up my family group chat and, without bothering to read any of the dozens of unread messages, I sent one final text. You just stole from me, I'm done. Then I blocked all of them. No more arguments, no more justifications, no more excuses. I was done. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. People like my dad, they don't just walk away when you take away their control. And sure enough, later that afternoon, I heard it. A loud, angry knock at my door. Not the casual kind, not someone dropping by for a visit. This was insistent, demanding. I already knew who it was before I even checked, but still, I looked through the peephole anyway, just to confirm. And there he was, my father, standing on my doorstep, jaw clenched, fist practically trembling at his sides. He didn't look angry, he looked furious, and I had a feeling this was about to get a lot worse. I stood there, staring through the peephole, my heart pounding. I wasn't scared, at least not in the way he wanted me to be. But there was something about the way he stood there, his whole body practically vibrating with anger, that made my blood run cold. He didn't just look pissed, he looked offended, like I had done something to him, like I was the one who had crossed the line. Another knock, louder this time. Alex opened the damn door. His voice was sharp, clipped, a voice I'd heard my entire life, a voice that always expected to be obeyed. He pounded his fist against the door again. I know you're in there. I took a deep breath, trying to decide what to do. My first instinct was to ignore him, let him rage out there until he got bored and left, but I knew my dad, that wasn't going to happen. He would stay, he would yell, he would escalate, and I wasn't about to have my neighbors calling the cops because my father didn't know how to take no for an answer. So, I unlocked the door. The second I cracked it open, he shoved his way inside. I had time to step back before he was already in my apartment, standing in my living room like he owned the place. What is wrong with you? He demanded, his voice low but seething, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, his whole body tense like he was barely holding himself back. You blocked your mother, your sister, after everything we've done for you? I let out a sharp laugh. Everything they've done for me. That was rich. You stole from me, I said, my voice cold. Don't act surprised that I'm cutting you off. His face twisted into something ugly, a sneer curling at his lips. Stole from you? Don't be dramatic. That money was for the family. I felt my fingers tighten into a fist at my side. That was my money that I earned, that I chose to share with you when I thought you actually needed it, I said, taking a step closer, refusing to let him tower over me like he used to when I was a kid. But I'm done. I'm not your damn ATM. I'm not paying your bills. I'm not bailing you out anymore. He scoffed, shaking his head. So that's it. You're just going to turn your back on us. I felt something in me snap. You turned your back on me? I shot back, my voice rising. You and Emily and Mom sat there and laughed at me. You mocked me, humiliated me, and now that you're losing my money, now you suddenly care. He rolled his eyes, letting out an exasperated sigh, like I was the one being ridiculous. Jesus, Alex, it was a joke. You're really going to throw a tantrum over that? I couldn't help but laugh, sharp, bitter, incredulous. A joke. It was always a joke when it suited them. Funny how it wasn't a joke when you were taking my money, though, I said. Funny how you never had a problem with my embarrassing career when it was paying your damn rent. That was when something changed. His expression flickered, just for a second, just long enough for me to see it. Uncertainty, a crack in his armor, like for the first time it was actually registering how serious I was. But then, just as quickly, the anger was back. He stepped closer, jabbing a finger in my chest. You wouldn't have that money if it wasn't for us. He spat. We raised you, we supported you. You wouldn't be where you are if we hadn't busted our asses putting food on the table for you. I let out a breath, shaking my head. And I paid you back 100 times over, I said. I took care of you. I covered your bills. I gave you everything I could, and it was never enough for you. I locked eyes with him, my voice turning ice cold. But I'm done. You don't get to insult me, steal from me, and then waltz in here acting like I owe you something. For the first time since he barged in, he didn't have a response. He just stood there, breathing hard, his face twisted in rage. But I could see something else beneath it, realization, because deep down I think he finally knew I wasn't bluffing. Then, just when I thought he might actually leave, his lips curled into a smirk. You think you're so damn successful, huh? His tone was mocking now, dripping with condescension. Think you're some big shot internet star. I didn't say anything. I just crossed my arms and waited for him to get to his point. He let out a short, bitter laugh. You think this streaming thing is going to last forever? You think you're set for life? Let me tell you something, kid. You're nothing. You're a joke. You think these people watching you online actually care about you? The second you stop being entertaining, the second some younger, better streamer comes along, you'll be forgotten. And when that happens, He spread his arms wide, giving me that patronizing, self-satisfied grin that used to make my stomach churn as a kid. "You'll come crawling back, just like I knew you would." I just stared at him for a long moment. He really believed that. He needed to believe that, because the alternative, that I was actually successful, that I was actually better off without them, was something his ego couldn't handle. So, I smiled, a slow, knowing smile that made his smirk falter just slightly. "You really think that, huh?" I said, my voice almost amused. "You really think I need you?" I took a step closer, looking him dead in the eye. "You have no idea how much money I make." And that was when I saw it, that flicker of something in his expression. Greed, curiosity, doubt. For the first time he actually thought about it, and that was when I knew. He wasn't here to argue, he wasn't here to make me feel guilty. He was here because he thought he could still win. But he was about to learn he had already lost. For the first time in my life, I saw something I never thought I'd see on my father's face. Hesitation, doubt. He wanted to believe I was bluffing. He needed to believe that I was still the same kid he could manipulate, that my success was temporary, that at any moment I'd come crawling back, desperate for his approval. But he wasn't stupid. He had never actually bothered to ask me about my career before, but now, standing in my apartment, my nice apartment, in a building he probably couldn't afford to rent a closet in, it was hitting him. I was doing better than him. Better than all of them. And he hated it. "You think you're too good for us now?" His voice had lost some of its bite, but he was still trying to cling to the upper hand. "You think just because you got lucky playing video games on the internet, you don't need your family anymore?" I sighed, shaking my head. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about money. It's about respect." I gestured around the room. "I worked my ass off for this. And instead of being happy for me, instead of being proud of me, you sat there and laughed. You treated me like a joke." I took a step closer, my voice cold. "But I'm the one laughing now." His jaw clenched. "You think you'll be laughing when this all falls apart? Because it will fall apart, and when it does, don't come crying to us." I tilted my head, studying him. "That's funny," I said, "because I was about to say the same thing to you." He scoffed, but I saw the flash of uncertainty in his eyes. I let the silence stretch between us before I finally spoke again. "You need me?" I said simply, "not the other way around." His face turned red. He opened his mouth to fire back some half-baked insult, but then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his scowl deepened. I smirked. "That mom asking if you got me to change my mind?" His grip on the phone tightened. "Bingo." I crossed my arms. "Let me guess, since I cut you off, the bills are stacking up. You've got debts. Maybe mom's been hounding you because suddenly there's no money coming in to save her from herself. Maybe Emily's panicking because she lost her safety net." I let my words sink in before I delivered the final blow. "How does it feel, Dad, knowing that the embarrassing failure is the only reason you weren't drowning?" His breathing was heavier now, his whole body tense with rage, but he had nothing to say because he knew I was right. I walked to the door and opened it wide. "Get out." He didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me, like he couldn't quite believe this was happening, like he still thought there was a way to turn this around. "You're making a mistake, Alex," he finally said, voice low. "Family is all you've got." I held his gaze. "That's where you're wrong. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. I wasn't seeking his approval. I didn't care what he thought. And that scared him more than anything." He lingered for a few seconds longer, maybe hoping I'd change my mind, maybe waiting for some last-minute guilt trip to land. But I just stood there, waiting. And finally, he turned and walked out. I shut the door behind him and locked it. Then I took a deep breath. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even sad. I just felt free. I took a moment to just stand there, letting the silence settle around me. No more guilt, no more obligations, no more bending over backward for people who never cared about me in the first place. It was over, and for the first time in years I felt like I could finally breathe. I knew they'd try to reach out again, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually when the money ran out, when things got tough, when they needed me again. But I wasn't going to be there. I had spent years supporting them, hoping they'd see my worth, but the truth was, I never needed their validation. I was successful without them. I was happy without them. And I wasn't about to let them drag me down ever again.